Do you want to know what most people do when they want to watch a new anime? They sit down, open their streaming service of choice, and enjoy. Now, want to see what I do? Then I go to bed because I wasted hours doing that, and it's all thanks to one thing that's been plaguing anime since its inception. Two words: fan service. Now, I can already hear the word tourist emerging in your head, so let me flash the credentials real quick. Satisfied? Cool. Now, what is fan service? Fan service, according to Wikipedia, is material in a work of fiction or in a fictional series that is intentionally added to please the audience, often sexual in nature, such as nudity. These are your upskirt shots, your beach episodes, your surprisingly detailed animation of particular body parts when the camera zoomed in, and it's not new. But just because something's been there forever doesn't make it automatically acceptable or even essential. Let's recall a principle called Chesterton's fence, which says, in short, do not remove a fence until you know why it was put up in the first place. Funny thing about fan service, we know exactly why it's there. It's in the name. So the next step would be to ask, is it necessary? And given the success of many anime that don't feature fan service, I'm inclined to answer no. This all leads into the biggest question of them all, which is, what's wrong with it? And here's where I have to get technical. Let me ask you, what constitutes adult content? Content that's rated R or M in visual media. I'd wager you'd say something like, because it's unsuitable for children. That much is true, but why? I think I know why. Let me use Mortal Kombat as an example. When you're 15 years old and you watch a Mortal Kombat fatality, and this is your first exposure to anything gory, your reaction is probably gonna look a lot like this. Whoa, that's pretty messed up. Wow, they did that to there. Wow, that's gross. Can the human body even do that? See, you'd have a good idea of what's going on, even if it's not the full picture and causes some minor distress. But imagine if you were 10. I have a 10-year-old relative, and his reaction would look a lot more severe. He'd be grossed out, he'd freak out, and he'd rush to turn off the TV. Now, imagine if you were 5 and you saw a Mortal Kombat fatality for the first time. Just try to picture the turmoil that would occur in the mind of that child. He'd be crying and screaming and would associate the color red with crying and screaming for years to come. They're having different reactions, but every one of them, 15, 10, 5, they're all perceiving the same reality. The only difference between them is their ability to grasp what's going on, to understand it. By the time you turn 18, you're perfectly capable of looking at a Mortal Kombat fatality and understand what's happening. Guy picked up other guy, stuck him with a sword wider than his torso through his midsection, and now the dude is half a dude and another half a dude. You understand that, and that's substantially the only thing that changes. We are scared of the things we don't understand. The less you understand a thing, all the while your emotions are yelling at you that something's wrong here, the scarier it is. That's why children are more easily scared. This impacts the way that your emotions react to certain stimuli, and when the effect is negative, we call that trauma. Lust works differently. All of the negative things said earlier about how gore impacts you worse the younger you are when you witness it apply to lust, but there's more to it than that. When you witness impure imagery, you are witnessing a reality that is A, not meant to be seen until one has attained a particular state in life, that is, marriage, and B, not meant to be variable. That is to say, no person is meant to witness more than one instance of this reality. By instance, I mean the following. You have yourself a cup of Starbucks mocha. Every Starbucks has the same recipe for their mocha and prepares it accordingly. The mocha is the reality. Every cup of mocha is an instance of this reality. Some have too much sugar, some burnt the beans, and some are iced if you're pagan, but all of them are instances of the same reality. Here, we are talking about the reality of intimacy. Like the Starbucks sugar drink, there is one reality and many instances of that reality. I'm not just talking about multiple people, by the way. Instances can also be aberrant experiences with the same person which break from what defines the correct instance that is meant for you. Man exists in a context in which the number of instances he experiences are not to exceed one, and that is only to be attained after having already committed to said instance in order to properly understand it. See, intimacy is a higher reality. It's a mystery, a very difficult one to fully grasp at that. Imagine you're standing in a library. Now, think of the most complex book you can imagine. There's countless copies of this book in the library, and only one of them has had its wording adjusted so that you can comprehend its contents. All others are unintelligible to you. Let's apply this to intimacy. That which constitutes the correct instance of intimate reality, which has been designed for you to comprehend, is defined as follows. It is an intimate act between a man and a woman bound to each other by marriage, which unites the spouses and is open to the generation of life. We'll call this one authentic intimacy, because every other instance is counterfeit. Understanding this, when you attempt to tread beyond that reality which has been ordained for you to receive and to be able to understand, it makes sense that you're going to encounter serious danger. After all, you're treading into deliberately uncharted territory which has not been designed to be intelligible to you. You're picking the wrong book from the library. That's why I started this by mentioning the impact of gore on developing minds. Gore and violence are different from lust and impurity because where gore becomes gradually more intelligible with age, lust remains unintelligible even into adulthood. In other words, your psychological reception of impurity will be equivalent to the 5-year-old's psychological reception of gore. Do you understand now? Intimacy is in a much higher plane of understanding than the basics of human anatomy that have been interrupted by a gun or a sword. And it has serious consequences too. It distorts your perception of intimacy, allowing you to fool yourself into thinking that counterfeit instances are authentic. Repeated exposure to counterfeit instances can desensitize you to what the authentic instance has to offer. You're also training your mind to find fulfillment in something that it's not designed to handle. To drop the terminology here for a second, fan service is, essentially, a quick dopamine hit. It's designed to titillate and distract, not to build your understanding of intimacy or the human person. It's pushing you away from that which God has ordained especially and uniquely for you and your understanding, and pulling you toward a cheap, counterfeit reality that conditions you to be satisfied with fake, unfulfilling, unintelligible noise. God offers you a 5-course meal, whereas fan service gaslights you into thinking that you're better off with moldy scraps, and you, like a dog, can't tell the difference anymore. But maybe you think I'm wrong, that I'm some Puritan who just can't handle seeing a little skin. After all, they're not even real women. Oh, how deep the problem lies. You don't seem to understand. Counterfeit instances, real or not, are deviant expressions of intimacy. Animated characters can distort intimacy just as much as written media, voice calls, or addictive internet impurity. Simply put, the fact that she's fake doesn't make it harmless, it makes it worse. Her artificiality is what turns her into yet another instance, and a counterfeit one at that. And if you're still hanging on, if you still aren't convinced, consider the following. Sometimes you can't tell when something's wrong. Pain and fear are very obvious indicators that something in you has been disrupted or damaged, or that there's danger approaching. But sometimes you need to be put under the microscope. Sometimes the issue doesn't present itself. Sometimes the problems within you are hidden. It may be the case with all this talk of fan service and how you're not necessarily impacted that you're the equivalent of the 5-year-old child who saw gore for the first time, but who repressed the memory. You may think you're fine, but there will be repercussions. There will come a day when you will see a blood spatter and you will freak out. There will come a time where you will be seated in a room that has a red painted wall and you're going to feel anxious. There will come a moment when you cut yourself and you're going to feel ill. You are not well. You have been traumatized. So I urge you, if you take anything away from this video, let it be this: stop consuming media which sexually traumatizes you, which distort your understanding of intimacy. Stop taking cheap hits of corrupted intimacy. Replace it with edifying or wholesome content like these. If there's a show you like but it features fan service, avert your gaze. Don't justify yourself. Don't say, oh, it's not that bad. You aren't called to be not that bad. You're called to be perfect, as your Father in heaven is perfect. Don't settle for less. Seek after purity, and this repressed trauma won't hurt you any further. No more blood spatters, no more red walls, no more cuts. All will be made well. This has been the 7th episode of Piercing, my commentary on media from a Catholic point of view. Like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, you know the drill. If you want to hang out with Catholics like me, even if you're not quite Catholic yourself, check out the Catholic Diocese of Discord and tell them I sent you. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.